Good morning, everybody. So, it's a nice, beautiful, foggy Watsonville morning. So, I just watched this video on it's dumb to professionally grade VHS and DVDs. Now, some of you may know I am a big comic collector. At least I was until I sold off my collection because I'm moving soon. I still have some books that I think are of value to myself, and are also, if I get them graded, I guarantee right now they have good investment value. The problem is CGC has a huge backlog right now, and that is a problem because there's been some quality control issues in terms of the actual grading you're getting. Some people are getting a way better grade than the book actually has, and some are getting a worse grade, and some are getting their books damaged, or the book is fine and the grade is fine, but the case is cracked. So it may be some time, unfortunately, until I actually get around to grading my collection. Plus, it'll be expensive to do so, but the payoff could be potentially very high, at least on some books. Now, here is getting back to the video I just mentioned. So you have people out there that are professionally grading, all sorts of media, all sorts of stuff, collectibles, I should say, not just media. I mean, sports cards have been a big thing for a long time. Obviously, graded coins, and having that little certificate of authenticity, so to speak, which we used to have back in comics, back in the 90s with comics. That certificate of authenticity means that signature of Jim Lee on X-Men number 1E is actually for real. Now, I have a copy of X-Men 1E signed by Jim Lee with that certificate of authenticity. It says gold signature, but the signature on my book is silver. I still believe it's Jim Lee's signature, but regardless, that's the whole thing. So the thing about CGC is with their signature series is they have to actually witness a signature, and this is a more recent thing. Apparently, there's a little slip piece of paper you can put in with a book when you get it signed by by the actual person, that they'll give it to you at a specific time or whatever, and then you send it in, and that becomes the authenticity. That becomes the witness. That is problematic because the whole idea of their signature series is that somebody has to witness a signature. So, but in any case, I digress. CBCS has a very similar thing. They have grading services where the signature is witnessed, but they'll also you pay them extra, they can authenticate a signature. Whether that's actually real or not is another thing. That's the problem. You see, if you have a witness of a person that says, yes, I saw this happen, that's like a sworn affidavit. Okay, if someone says, oh, this looks exactly like a signature, therefore I'm authenticating it, that becomes that sounds great. I can do that with my X-Men 1E, which is not in perfect condition, so I'm not going to actually do that. I have it because I love it. It was a birthday present from my mom when I was about, I think 11. So 11, maybe 12. I can't remember which, but it was around that time. Anyways, you have signature series on everything. You have encapsulation for all sorts of things. So in addition to comics, coins, trading cards, and of course I mentioned DVDs and VHS, you've got the action figure market. Now, if you have an old Star Wars action figure that's actually been kept in great condition and protected from extreme heat and extreme cold, maybe the bubble's not too yellow. But unfortunately, with the material on those, the bubble does turn yellow. And but if you expose it, if you store it in a place that's kind of warm, even if it's under a roof and inside of a box, it can still turn yellow. Like my buddy had a huge problem with his late 90s, early 2000s Star Wars toy collection. But that's the thing, is that if you have something from the late 70s, early 80s, it's gonna be really hard to get a 10.0 on the grading scale for a Jawa with the plastic cape or whatever it is. Anyways, so here's the kicker, right? So this guy in this video I just watched, he's complaining a lot about, and he has some valid points about professionally graded videos and DVDs and how you're going to flood the market, basically. He didn't say that, but he's basically implying that with a lot of what he's saying. And I thought the same thing about CGC. I've wanted to get into CGC graded comics since 2001, and I first saw their stuff in Wizard magazine. I'm like, that's the future. Spawn number 1 worth over $100. What? Okay. Or maybe it was over $200 at that time. I'm trying to remember. It was a while ago, but I remember seeing a listing of like, oh, it's $12 ungraded, and then it's worth the crazy amount graded. And I'm like, this is the future of collecting for me if I can pull it off. I bought tons of comics over the years, and some of them actually, if I get them at a 9.8, they're going to be extremely high in value. And I guarantee some of these are 9.8. Okay, I mean, they are such pristine copies that if it ends up being a 9.6, I'm going to be super surprised. But some of them, even at 9.6, are going to be worth a lot. So that's where I'm kind of at with my my thoughts on my collection. But there's some points this guy makes. Like if you get a VHS that's sealed up, you get a Home Alone, the first Home Alone movie sealed, and it ends up being graded at a 10 on their scale. It's not a rare VHS, just like the Lion King's not rare. Okay. Now, if you get the Little Mermaid with the penises in the background, okay, you get a copy that's sealed. That's good, and he makes this point too. It's the scarcity of the movie that makes it rare, and I 100% agree with that. But I also have to make the point that having it in actual perfect condition and graded also, at least for a time, gives it high value. Until all the extra copies that are still sealed up in a warehouse somewhere come out of the woodwork. And so it's kind of like, for example, the Star Wars toys. A buddy of mine gave me, I might even still, no, I think I sold it. It's Han Solo wearing the Stormtrooper outfit. It was a mail away from the late 90s. And at the time, it was rare. But then it turns out that there's a warehouse in China where these things were made. That just a few years ago, there's like, they had tons of them. Tons and tons and tons of them sitting in there. And the market got flooded. So now a toy that already was losing value because the toy market lost a lot of currency. Well, this toy is now worth like pretty much nothing. It's like you'd be lucky to get like $1 for it. But I think you could have got like $20 for it at some point, or some stupid amount of money for it. Anyways, it has no value pretty much. You might as well have it because you love it. And that is the key with collecting anyway. I mean, I'm on these CGC groups on Facebook, and I mean, holy crap, these guys, I can tell some of these guys are not really collectors. They're not really fans of the comic. They're doing this because COVID happened. And because of COVID, people had to find something to do while they couldn't go to work. And so they started collecting, action figures and, trading cards and comic books, professionally graded. So CGC exploded. And now that's why they're having such a backlog, is because everyone wants to send their stuff in. And now that the COVID restrictions are kind of coming undone, to an extent, people have actually gone back to work in a large way. There's this huge backlog. So they're opening up another center. And so, but unfortunately now they've raised the prices because, oh, we have to make a new facility, blah, blah, blah. It's like, they don't need to even do that. They're making so much money off the backlog, they can just build a facility. But no, they want to charge a little bit extra. But I would say inflation is really kind of the real reason why they need to do that, and I accept it because of that. And it's only about $1 or $2, price raise, but still, it's like they raised the prices like a year before that, I think. Anyways, so getting back to the point this guy makes is if you get a sealed VHS and you get it graded as a sealed copy, which CGC does not do that with polybag comics. If you get Superman, 75, The Death of Superman, I think it's 75, in that black polybag, they have to open up the polybag to grade the comic. They're not going to grade it as a polybagged copy, and they're not going to unseal it and then reseal it and then encapsulate it. They don't do that. I don't think CBCS does either. PGX might, I don't know, but PGX is kind of the redheaded bastard stepchild of grading. Kind of. It has a little more currency than a bunch of other companies that are the real redheaded bastard stepchilds. But PGX is still kind of the redheaded bastard stepchild, pardon my language. But CGC it's the standard. It's the industry standard. CBCS was founded by one of the original graders of CGC, and therefore it has to maintain a certain amount of the same standards, maybe even higher at times, and maybe just very similar standards. I mean, their stuff, it's like a high quality knockoff of CGC because it was founded by one of the original CGC graders. Because of that, it does have, they can charge almost the same, and it has in some respects almost the same currency, but some people are saying, nah, I still want the CGC label, and I get it. They're printing some cool looking labels. You pay them an extra like $4, and they'll print a special Wolverine logo on that Wolverine #1 9.8. So, anyways, if you get a sealed copy of a VHS and you get it graded as a sealed copy, what happens if there's mold inside, like between the paper and the plastic of the VHS? Like, what if the label underneath, the label on the tape itself, what if that is moldy? And you can't tell because the outside looks perfect and you have plastic wrapped around it, sealed up. So you can't really tell at all if it's good or not. That's the problem. That's the problem really with sealed games as well. But sealed video games. Okay, graded video games. Okay, you could actually do that too. And after selling off my collection for actually not a bad price, considering he gave me basically the fair market value, this buddy of mine. Looking back though, it's like even unsealed, you can get some of these things graded because some of them were complete, and you can make some money off them. And I didn't know that was even, actually that wasn't a thing, I don't think, when I sold the games. So that's where I'm looking at it. Like if I come across a VHS Nintendo collection for cheap on Craigslist or eBay, I'm gonna get on that. Or if I go to a yard sale or something and I find a complete, not sealed but complete copy that's in extremely like immaculate condition, I will definitely buy it, and I'll definitely get that encapsulated and graded, just because as long as the market exists for it. Okay, for me, I'm a speculator in that respect. Like with my comics, I'm going to be a speculator as well as kind of a collector. I'm going to keep some of my stuff. I'm going to sell a lot of it too, to justify the serious price cut I had to take on my collection. Considering I paid like cover price for most of it. There's a lot of comics that were in the 50-cent bin that I got, but even still, like if you look at 13 long boxes or 12 and a half long boxes, basically. You hold about 200 plus comics in one of those boxes. If it's 50 cents each, that's like, seriously, $100 a box. And that's how much I sold them for. And I paid like $2 or $3 for a lot of these, $4 for some of them. I took a serious price cut on my collection. That's why I'm holding on to the good ones that I want to get graded, so I could then sell them and make my money back. And that'll make me feel good. Plus, I'll have a few of the things to keep in my personal collection. I'll have one box of CGC graded comics. That's my goal. I got my Wolverine collection, which I'm going to keep mostly ungraded. And then I want to have one box of my existing comics graded, maybe to keep. And the rest of them to totally sell off. But we'll see if that goal actually happens. I might have like less than half a box of graded comics that I keep for myself. Because as a collector, I do want to have that stuff. It does look cool. I think it's awesome. And comics are a little bit different. But here's the thing. Comics, like cards, are made of paper, just like the cases on VHS and also the little paper lining of the DVDs. Okay? That stuff can get moldy. I've seen pictures of people's CGC graded comics where the comic unknowingly had mold at the time it was graded, and it got graded, and this is sitting in this encapsulation. And now there's mold developing on it. Now, you can get rid of some of the mold. There's a special way of doing it. There's a guy who calls himself a comic scientist, and the guy's awesome. The guy actually does some pretty amazing work in restoration, and mostly subtractive restoration. None of his books have come back anything other than a blue label, because he just does such a good job of making it look like the restoration never happened. That and again, he's doing a lot more subtractive restoration, so he's not really actually he's not putting so many weird chemicals in the comics. He kind of is, but it's a cleaning agent, not so much they did the same thing back in the day, and that could previous decades of restoration did cause problems on the paper. But he is a chemist by trade, and he's actually pretty in the know about what he's doing, so he can clean that giant size X-Men #1 and make it look white. And then he can totally fix the staples. If the staple is rusty, he can remove all the rust, and then he can electroplate it to make it look like the original, and to give it that all that stuff. He can remove rust stains from a lot of the paper. So, and I've got a couple books with rust on the staples that I need to maybe send in to somebody like him, depending on the price. But I may not send it to him because his prices are probably going to be much higher. He is definitely professional when it comes to this. But you get these, but again, like, you know, the point about the VHS tapes, grading those still sealed. Grading anything still sealed is the problem. Now, if investment grading were to say, okay, we are not going to grade stuff that is sealed. We have to unseal it. The encapsulation is kind of the new sealing. You know, that would make a little more sense because they need to actually physically handle the entire object. They need to see if underneath that plastic, that paper really is a 10.0 box, okay? They need to find out, is this, and heck, I would say for $65 a pop, they need to sit there and watch the entire virgin copy of that VHS and make sure that it still plays. And make sure that, you know, there isn't some weird moisture in between, within the roll of the tape, which can happen, and which can cause some weird stuff, and also and create mold. Anyways, I remember the days of VHS. That's why I'm saying all this. So, and kind of the same with the DVDs, which are easier to check, you know, the quality of. But there are times where you open up a set of DVDs and you try to play it, and something's wrong with the DVD. Like, it was printed wrong or whatever. Not printed, that's not even the right word, but it was burned wrong. And you cannot watch one of the discs of that Game of Thrones Season 3. I realize now that's why my Season 3 of Game of Thrones is sitting there unwatched and sat there for years unwatched, is because I thought it might have been the DVD player, but no, I'm pretty sure it's the actual discs. And it was brand new. It was totally brand new. It was a fresh copy. Anyways, I just want you guys to, you know, think about that. So I got some weird light thing here on my phone. I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So those were my thoughts on the grading. Now, again, the viability of older rare copies. Like, if my Punisher VHS was in like a 10.0 condition, at least relatively so, considering it's not sealed, you're damn right I get that thing sealed. One, I love that movie. Okay, the Dolph Lundgren version of Punisher was awesome, and almost nobody's heard of it. Okay, but I will not send my current jacked up copy, but I will keep it because I love it. Okay, but will I send in my Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2, which I actually have in a box ready to donate? Okay, now I'm questioning. Now I have to look into that because I haven't donated that stuff yet. I might have to reach back into that box and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take those two and take my one of my Lord of the Rings uncut editions of DVD sealed up, and see if maybe I should send that in to be graded, and and then get hundreds of dollars for it if that's what the market actually dictates. So those are the things I'm thinking about when it comes to this whole topic. I mean, I know it's going to crash someday. It's kind of like, a couple last thoughts here. I have been waiting for CGC to collapse ever since it got going. I've been waiting for it, okay? But it hasn't happened yet. It's grown. It's gotten bigger. You have other companies that have copied them or spraying out of them. Like I said, CBCS is like an unofficial, branch, so to speak. They're a branch out. They're a child of CGC. PGX is a wannabe child of CGC, and there's a bunch of others out there too that are very, very, like, you don't even know what they are. You've never even heard of them because they suck, basically. I've seen some really bad graded comics out there from these knockoff companies. Anyways, I've been waiting for the market to collapse for about 20 years now, okay, and it hasn't happened. The collectible, and of course CGC is also graded like posters now and all kinds of other stuff. So eventually it will all collapse. It'll take a bigger economic collapse, I feel, for this eventual collapse to take place. It doesn't mean that CGC won't survive it. It might mean that PGX doesn't survive it, and CBCS might also possibly suffer, kind of like, Indian versus Harley, okay? Indian was doing really well in the 40s, but Harley Davidson got that military contract during World War II, and they got to keep going. I mean, Indian still kept going until the early 1950s, but then they eventually, got bought out by Royal Enfield. And then after a couple of years, that got bought out by Matchless. So, or at least the Indian portion of Enfield. So, and that's not talking about the India-based company of Enfield, which still exists. So, you never know what the future has in store. So maybe this professional grading of DVDs and VHS might actually be the next big thing. I mean, I would love to have a copy. I'd love to find a sealed copy of Super Mario Brothers #1 and get that professionally graded. Holy crap, man! I mean, some guy was trying to sell that for $1 million on Pawn Stars. Okay, like, it's crazy. So as long as it keeps going, I want it to keep on going, because I want to have a chance to possibly make some money off of it myself. And if people are going to keep, if collectors are going to do this, even speculator collectors are going to keep doing it. That's the problem with the 90s, though. You see, I always remember the 90s collapse of the comic industry, because in the early 90s, you had all these companies like Image, and Marvel did a lot of stuff with all the variant covers. So did DC, but it was mostly Marvel. You had all the polybag versus non-polybag editions. You had the, what do you call it? Different covers, like X-Men #1 from 1991. I mean, like 5 different versions of that comic. That's not even mentioning the newsstand editions. Okay, so which I have the newsstand edition Magneto cover, which I'm going to get graded, even though it's probably like a 9.4 at best. Of course, if I get it clean and pressed, and whatever, it might be higher. We'll see. But the scarcity from 1986 onward. Just a little comic, side note here. That's when the UPCs, the barcodes, became more scarce, and the little barcode square started having the Spider-Man cover, the Captain America in there, and all these different, Incredible Hulk, all these different little icons were being put inside. And of course, with DC, you have like other stuff like the Superman logo and Batman, whatever. That replaced the barcode, because the direct market from the comic shops became the greater part of the market. So around the time that like Apocalypse first appeared, in the comics, from that point on, newsstands became more rare. Before that, it's the direct copies that were more rare. So my Wolverine #1, I think it's a direct edition, I might be wrong, that would be more rare than the newsstand. And people are trying to say, oh, the newsstand, rare newsstand variant. Back then it wasn't rare. Back then it was the norm. The direct edition was more scarce. But then again, that could depend on the comic itself. Okay, I need to look into that. So, anyways, I hope I got my points across here. As long as the market keeps going, I want to keep on going, because I want to make some money off of it. But I've been waiting for the CGC to crash, because the 90s comic crash. The lessons of that have taught me that you got to be careful when it comes to speculating. Oh yeah, Image and Valiant started selling tons of comics that were, all these brand new issue #1s, all these overprinting of their hot new comic. Turok #1, Ninjak #1, okay? All of that, and Bloodshot #1, which is a cool comic, don't get me wrong, but it's also overprinted. Exo Manowar #0, okay? I mean, there's a reason why you have tons of Valiant comics that are basically dumpster comics, because there's so many of them. I think that most collectors should burn their copies, especially their bad condition copies, and do it on YouTube, and do it to where all of a sudden we can't find the comics as easily, and that will make them more rare. That'll make the existing 50-cent comics much more rare, okay? For the same reason that getting a sealed VHS copy of, I don't know, or hey, a sealed copy of Flash Gordon from the 1980 movie, filmed 1979, but the 1980 film of Flash Gordon on video disc, not Laserdisc, video disc, okay? Find that. Get that professionally graded. I'm telling you, man, that right there would be a gem. Heck, even finding it in perfect condition, but like unsealed, and getting that graded, that would be something, okay? Rare stuff like that, I want to see it graded. I want to see pristine copies make their way into the public eye, and to make people remember that this stuff once existed, okay? Anyways, guys, there's almost 25 minutes here. I want you guys to think about this stuff. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.